Now, discussion. Number 18 is going to be discussion of third-party inspection of Piney Woods Elementary, and I think you had did you have a point of order you wanted to make?
I want to make the point of order. I think we've had some gentlemen that are here that want to present this, and then I wanted to make a point of order after that.
Oh, okay. So we're going to let Mr. Beatonbaugh start us off. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Ross. I do want to thank the board for approving this third-party inspection for our new school. Gives us another set of eyes to make sure everything is perfect. So here tonight, Mr. Jeff Burkett, Wally Stoll, and Kyle Golden are here from Meeting Hunt. They conducted the third-party inspection. We had to wait until school was out. My feet are still tired from walking with Wally, the whole building, every inch of the parking lot. But I think they did a thorough job, and they're here to present the material from their discovery of their third-party inspection. So I'll ask them to come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Kyle Golden. This is Wally Stoll. I'll just give you a quick overview of the scope of work for this project, and then Wally will go into the details of our findings. We were asked by the school district to do a closeout process of the Piney Woods Elementary school project, and we were asked to review any documentation that we were provided, as well as Mr. Bedenbaugh mentioned, a site visit to review the final construction of the school. We were asked to provide any deficiencies or clarifications that needed to be found, and then we will defer any resolutions to those to Mr. Bedenbaugh. Well, if you want to go ahead and discuss our findings.
So initially, some of the initial items we observed was some warranty information, some action items that needed to be done to provide the warranty outside that initial two-year window that the installing contractor provides to maximize the 20-year warranty on the roof life system. Those items pertain to restricting access, sign-in, sign-out logs, who goes up there, and just some maintenance items that needed to be taken care of just to maintain those warranties. And also there are some care and maintenance logs that we provided, and those care and maintenance logs need to be followed to maintain the warranty, and this was all found in the fine print of the warranty information. We also observed some civil work. Let me see what the next slide is. Some of these items right here on the score joints and the concrete sidewalks, when initially observed, I was not informed that it was value engineered out, so those items are no longer valid on the report because it was value engineered. So in the specifications, the specifications don't apply to the value engineer portion of it. When I walked the project, I noticed that there were no expansion joints in the concrete curb at all. Per the project plans, they're required every 100 feet. So that item was noted. There are some workmanship deficiencies. It looked like you could see some of the aggregate coming out, which is the rock that's in the concrete on the surface of the curbs. Yes, ma'am. Then we also noticed at the parking lot area, the handicap stalls did not meet the minimum requirements in the project plans. And that minimum requirements based off of ADA requirements. So that was also noted. We also noticed some gaps on the interior doors, which were on the courtyard area. I believe, speaking with maintenance, the teachers were complaining of water coming in, and we observed those gaps and took pictures of them and let them know. The aluminum curtain wall, which is along the cafeteria, the exterior had a cover that wasn't secured, and I wasn't provided a shop drawing, so I don't know exactly how that was put together, but I do know that portions of it had come off, so I noted that as an item. And then when we went through the pay apps and the contingencies, we noticed on or around pay app 13, the initial statement of values for the GMP, somehow that value was changed. So it was a little over $10,000 less on the from the original statement of values. So that was brought to the attention, and I was informed that it was due to interest that was not on the initial POs. But that was in or around like pay app 13. And that's a brief overview. I'll open up the floor to any questions.
Did you, are all of the things that you mentioned, are all of those pictures in
Yes,
here?
there are
Yeah,
pictures.
I was trying to find them in here, I know.
Yeah, while we were there, we saw some minor roof ponding, but we were informed just the day before that the area had received a lot of rain. So as long as that rain's not sitting on top of the roof for more than 48 hours, that's in compliance with the warranty.
Okay.
And then, but you can see the door gaps. You see there's a ponding. You can see the door gaps there in the courtyard area.
Okay.
There's a curtain wall at the cafe area where the exterior cover plate came off of the curtain wall. There's some damaged curb. That's my foot. And we also noticed on some of the civil work, per the project plans, the expansion contraction joints weren't placed in the right location. So where a contraction joint needed to go, they probably put an expansion joint or vice versa. So it wasn't exactly per the plans. I believe that was only on one of them. And then some general, there's your handicap stalls. And just basically just showing, I believe, no expansion joints.
I'll ask. You had a hand up, Ms. Huddle. I'll be last.
Can you go back to the door gaps?
Wait, there you go.
The top one on the left, I'm obviously not in the construction business, but the floor looks really weird to me right there. The floor, do you see what I'm talking about? It looks like it's crumbling. Right next to
I didn't hear you, ma'am, I'm sorry.
the floor next to the wall on the top left, it looks rough or crumbly.
The floor seemed fine. I didn't notice anything at that point. The main thing at that area, what I was seeing, it could have been, from what I was told, is there was moisture, there's water coming in for those doors right there. So there may have been some damage from water coming in, and that would have been due to those door gaps.
You said something about value engineering with the concrete curb and gutter and the sidewalks? What are you talking about?
The civil work was value engineered out, so I believe Clay can answer that.
Well, I was in the meetings, and we didn't value engineer anything to do with that.
This was originally the heavy-duty pavements were concrete pavement, and that, we ended up doing heavy-duty asphalt in the bus loop is what we're referring to there.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the concrete curb and gutter and the
No, sir.
sidewalks?
No, sir, that does not.
So, I mean, the value engineering was simply to do with the wearing surface in those areas, right?
That's right, in the heavy-duty pavement areas.
Okay, so anyway, the other items that you've got on this list where you didn't have any expansion joints and curbs and you had problems with expansion and contraction joints and no caulking as called for by the SCDOT, all that you found, and
That's in the project plans for them to provide that.
okay, so it's not there, right?
That's correct. It
And
was
it's not
there.
done correctly right now, right?
Excuse me?
It's not done correctly according to the project specifications, right?
It was not constructed in accordance with the project plans and specifications. I was informed that all items are corrected. At this moment, I have not been out there and been able to verify that the items have been corrected.
Well, how would they correct it?
I have not been out there to verify how they were corrected or know the means of it.
Well, I mean, you've got places that cost for expansion joints at every 100 feet along the curb. I mean, there's no way that could possibly be done after the fact.
Well, I can't specifically answer that. to how they did it because I have not seen it. I do know that with engineering recommendations, there has been ways. We have done it on SCDOT jobs to where they've been able to cut in and put the rubber expansion material inside of there and make sure that's nice, tight fit. Or they can remove a section of the concrete curb from the score joint, which are every 10 feet, and then just replace that portion of the curb and pour back up against it. So there are ways to do it. I haven't seen how they've done it.
So where it calls for scoring in the concrete slab on the exterior sidewalks and all, so that can be done after the fact, just go in there and saw it out, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, one thing I didn't notice was on the sidewalks was the cut back the expansion material and then seal that expansion material. And what that does is prohibit moisture from getting down into that joint there because you've got an open joint, and it allows the subgrade to stay stable, and it prolongs the life of your sidewalk.
So what you're referring to is expansion joint, and you would route that out and caulk it, is what you're saying right there at the expansion joint only? That's
Yes.
what you meant in your report?
Yes.
Okay, were there any other, the scored joints that were not of the proper depth? In other words, the joints that were put in there with a rope, impression and so forth?
Well, the compression material was in there, sir. What wasn't done was the caulking that came back and caulked that expansion material.
Okay, and the concrete, the nature of the concrete finish and so forth that you mentioned in the report? So,
The nature of the concrete finish on the sidewalks seemed to be, gave the appearance of being acceptable. I didn't see any deficiency as far as the broom finish and everything it looked. Now, some of the concrete curb, that's where I noted some of the pictures on. I don't know, I wasn't there when they placed it, so I don't know what caused it. It just looked like it was a rough finish, so there could be many things that
and
happened.
I noticed one picture where they core drilled in and allowed water through the gutter of the, which was basically a intermittent spring, it looked like to me, where they had released water to come through the bottom of the gutter instead of putting a spring box in to control it.
Yeah, I'm not certain what happened there. It looked like it was either something installed that they removed, that was, because it's a perfectly round hole, like either a pipe or maybe there was a bollard there, or it was a core. But they should have came back and filled that in because you're going to get water penetrating down into the subgrade there as well.
My concern is the water's coming out of it and under pressure from below. I mean, your picture shows it wet all around the opening, the holes.
Well, I don't know. This was which one was it? Right there. This was briefly after it had rained, so that water's probably filled up. You're not going to get water, unless that subgrade's really wet, you got vibration, you're not going to get water pumping up through it. You're going to get water coming down and messing with the subgrade underneath. Unless you have a water source that's pushing it that way.
So it looks like to me you're looking for a pothole there, because that would, decrease the strength of your subgrade material and allow the wearing surface to denigrate over time.
Yes, I was going to say, any other questions? Yeah.
I'm concerned about, you said they told you it's been fixed, but you guys haven't been back out there, and I'm assuming that's not in your scope. So if we need, we need to get this examined again, if it's been corrected. Do we have, does the district have anything in writing that they've said they've corrected everything?
We'll go back out and confirm everything.
They'll
You got-
confirm it.
Yeah, we can do that.
And
Can I just
Yeah,
finish?
yeah, go ahead, 'cause-
And I just want to make sure we didn't pay to have it corrected.
No, ma'am. We just received word last week. They had finished all the information as of last week. So we haven't asked Meeting Hunt to go back out yet because they just finished all this, but there was no pay involved in them correcting these actions.
Okay, and do we know what corrected means, what they did to correct it? Do we have that in writing?
We do not have it in writing, no ma'am, not yet.
Okay.
But we do
Can we
have-
ask for that in
Yes,
writing?
yes, ma'am.
To your point, and that was why I was going to back up what you were saying. This is, to me, I appreciate that this board voted that we're going to, not just this project, but any project from now on, have this type of experience and service, because, you know, with my longevity on the board and with some of the things that happened at Chapin, and we had to go back and fix it, I wish we had, you know, because I want to think any construction company we work with wants to do quality work. So that was my question. When you point these out for us, just like we want to do with any project that's been completed, are all the things you showed us fixable?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so I agree with Ms. Huddle. We need that confirmed that it's fixed, and we'll count on Mr. Beatonball to do that and have that in writing. I mean, that's good. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have another question. And I'm not in construction, but is the way it works is that the architect's role was to sign off on this? I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm trying to understand. Is that their role to sign off on it? So is that their role to also sign off on the corrections?
Well, a lot of these items that were, or all of these items that were reserved aren't in your normal and typical inspections that go on throughout a project. You'll have what you call your Chapter 1 inspections, which is your building envelope, your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire and life safety, ADA compliance. You'll also have your Chapter 17, which is like your structural inspections, your concrete, masonry, steel construction, things of that nature, your welding. So all these items are outside of that scope. The Chapter 1 inspection and Chapter 17 inspection is not going to be looking for warranty information. Chapter 17 doesn't involve concrete, curb, and gutter. So all these items are outside of that scope. So it's
Maybe I should put it another way. We're getting ready to do IRMO. Whose role is it while the project's going on to look at a concrete curb and say, yes, it was installed correctly, or a curtain wall or a door? Whose role is that to
Well,
say that?
I guess it's depending on how the project's set up, but ultimately the general contractor is ultimately responsible for their product.
Okay. So there's really no oversight during the project? We would have to get somebody like you? Is that what you're saying?
General contractor is ultimately responsible for their project.
Okay.
The architect, they specify the work that needs to be done. The contractor comes in and builds it. You've got pretty much three components in the inspections. You've got the Chapter 1, Chapter 17, like Wally mentioned. You also have construction materials testing. That's where you concrete, you're sampling your concrete, you're making sure that the curb and gutter is put into spec generally. But as far as aesthetics, things like that, that's kind of going to fall into the architect most of the time.
Well, something you guys probably don't know is I sat out here, we were in a different room, but in September of 2020, and Mr. Lovelace knew that that concrete was not poured correctly. And a whole bunch of people told him he was wrong. And I'm trying to figure out how we make sure that never happens again, let alone tell a board member they're wrong for caring. But, you know, on IRMO, how do we make sure that the concrete's poured correctly?
Well, you know, the contractor should submit their concrete design. So their mix design should come from the plant or whoever. They're saying that their mix design meets specs. The contractor's saying it, the concrete plant's saying it. A firm like us would come on site and we would sample it for compression strength testing. We would slump it to make sure there's not too much water in it, right cement water ratio, things like that, in accordance to the mix design.
And are they supposed to test it while they're pouring it?
Yes,
Okay.
you should. It depends on what the specs call for. Some might ask for one sample per day, which might be 4 concrete cylinders per day. A lot of contractors don't call you out for curb and gutter. It's just not a structural item that's a life safety issue or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it could fail and you've got washouts and things like that, but we don't get called a lot of times for things like concrete, curb and gutter and sidewalk.
This contract did.
Did it?
Okay, it called it for SCT 50, and we didn't follow that. And SCT 50 is not by the location, it's by the design mix. and it did call for it, and it wasn't done for 535 yards of concrete. And I made the issue, and I'm gonna say something here in a minute, but the architect is ultimately responsible. We paid him to inspect this project. We paid him a lot of money, okay? And her question to you, I believe, is why are you having to augment the list of items to complete, the final list of items to complete, when that should have been done by somebody else prior to you being there? And we appreciate your efforts to be there, and we certainly made a policy in our board policy to have that done from there on out. But her question to you, I believe, is why wouldn't the architect have found these things that were, that were put out in front of him? We paid $1.6 million to have that done. Okay, and so we want quality, we want first quality materials, and we don't want a bunch of hacked up stuff that we have to go back and saw and make changes to. We were expecting this to be done properly in the beginning, and we insist upon it from here on out. That's why we're here.
I'd like to interject to your question too, Ms. Huddle. Again, this is just, I'm a history teacher. I believe in learning from history. I can assure you when we had the problems, and I'm using this as an example, with Chapin, and that's one, we had architect, construction company, and a construction management company. And the board, and none of you own it, so it only me can take responsibility for this, along with the former board. We decided from the superintendent that it was real smart to get a construction management company. And yet we still hired a person, and we were told we ought to hire a person that was in-house to oversee such a expensive project. This was back when the bond passed. So we paid somebody, I don't know, somewhere over $100,000 to work for the district and keep an eye on so this doesn't happen. And then we paid, I don't want to say the amount and it's wrong, but it was a lot of money to construction management. And of course, the architect and the construction company, which was China Construction. I can tell you when we found the problems, and they had to get fixed. And really, thanks to a really smart board member, Miss Lovelace, I'm gonna give her credit for that, because I had just gotten back on the board. She told them about these problems, but nobody really believed her. And we ended up having to pay a lot of money. So here's what happened, Miss Huddle. We called, this is the old board, and we had a smart lawyer on the board. He said, we need to go to all three of these people. They all are responsible. And they all did this. It's the truth. So we did mediation, because, it was costing the board a lot of lawyer money, okay? And we ended up working something out with, we had one of the companies come up with a little bit that they were willing to be responsible for and give us. Construction company a little bit, China Construction, but nobody wanted to take responsibility for it. And it cost us a lot of money, and it was a lot of heartache and headache to Chapin high school kids and principals that we just got this great new thing we built, and a lot was wrong with it. It had to go fixed. The siding wasn't put up right. There was leakage. A door was put on wrong. I mean, I went out there to see it. And as a board member that trusted and did all that, I was upset. So we are, we're really dependent on this new policy where I don't care what we build. And Piney Woods is a beautiful school. We're not throwing any stones at that. But we need to know the taxpayer's dollar. And this does not happen to us again where they're all doing this. And so we are counting on a company that, and there may be other companies that do it, to check behind before we close out on something we've spent a lot of money to build. And I kind of don't agree about concrete, because I can tell you, I teach, and where concrete has crumbled and you're stepping up and kids are running, you can fall. And concrete not being put down right can be a problem, especially in an elementary school. So I'm just giving you that history of why this is so important that we get everything done right with the people we've paid. And it's no slam on any one company, because we've dealt with a lot of companies building stuff, and we've had a lot of things go wrong. And we're just here to protect ourselves. So I just want to know it can all get fixed. I'm going to count on these people that we paid the money to, the architect and the construction company, that they will get it fixed. So,
I'd like to make a motion to ensure that happens. I move that pursuant to the construction closeout Piney Woods Elementary School, Chapin, South Carolina report, 5 items, 17 pages, including the appendix, dated March 28, 2022, prepared by Mead and Hunt for Piney Woods Elementary School, that the superintendent require the architect to formally notify the construction manager at risk that repairs charged to his account be made as listed in the above report prior to final acceptance of the project. Is the intent of the board that all construction be first-class quality with specified conforming materials and acceptable workmanship prior to acceptance? And final acceptance shall be contingent upon a final report from Mead and Hunt.
that was a lot, but is there a second? I love this seconds. I think we've kind of made our case about, or at least why I would support that. I don't like it when nobody took responsibility, and our board spent a lot of time and agreed that they should all help pay for what the mistakes were at Chapin.
Before we close this out, and this has nothing to do with Mead and Hunt, but I want to take a point of,
Just a minute, we've
can I
got,
get a second?
yeah,
I did second it. Yeah, I just want to put this in the record. Okay, I request a point of personal privilege, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I
Okay, and then
gave it to you a while
would like
ago.
this to be reflected in the minutes. In December of 2019, I was approached by a citizen concerned about concrete construction activities in the dead of night at Piney Woods Elementary School, then elementary school number 13. She spoke in public participation. Because of my background in construction, I inquired and followed board policy BEDH with the district superintendent, raising questions asked by the citizen. One would believe that my interest would have been met with encouragement. Far be that from the case. I met with Dan Neal and the district superintendent on January 9th, 2020 in the district office about the citizen's concern. What followed then was silence. Not receiving answers, I then asked for the concrete supplier on this portion of the project for information about the materials, specifically delivery tickets. To my great surprise, I found that curb and gutter and other concrete materials not tested as they were being installed. They were tested at a later date with destructive testing. Further, the materials were installed in a non-conforming manner so as to require them to be rejected had they been tested. There was 100 gallons of water added to one concrete truck. It was retempered. The truck was on site for 6 hours. And I found all of that, and that's not the only truck that was out there. Okay, I wrote the district superintendent in detailed fashion as required of board policy BEDGA with my concerns on March 24, 2020. I visited the job site once when the entire board was invited by the administration during June of 2020, and I was never there again until ribbon cutting in 2021. My inquiries were based upon observations from off-site, made mostly driving back and forth to work because I happened to pass it every morning and every evening. Without prior knowledge and caught by surprise, I was put on trial by the board majority on September 14, 2020. District hired lawyers and 11 engineers and architects participated. Ed White, one of the board members, was allowed by the board chair to act as a mock prosecutor. I was put on trial a second time on September 28, 2020. At the September 28th board meeting, Mr. Neal stated in his letter terminating his services as consultant to the superintendent, I quote, "I find that I spend more time answering trivial questions by those who want to find fault, and it detracts from the project. When I was a board member, he was a board member in Richland too, by the way, I understood that, one, I had no authority as an individual, 2, I chose not to visit construction projects unless I was invited by the administration, and that was rare. And 3, I understood that it was not my job to supervise constructions rather than to support those who do. Well, Mr. Neal, I did not do those things either. I recused myself from participation. But I simply asked that the constituents' questions be answered, and tonight I feel somewhat vindicated by the fact that a non-conforming material has been found on the very subject which I tried in vain to inform.
Thank you, guys. I think you know what we would, I think from the vote that what we want is just them to have our quality work. And I'm going to have faith they're going to go do that.
Got a call for the vote?
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, we already voted. I thought we
Seconded.
So we're going to vote on her motion. It was very long, but does anybody want it read again?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
And I may just be missing out on all of this, but, okay, so we have Mead and Hunt that has done a third-party inspection. They found some deficiencies. They have submitted those deficiencies to the general contractor to be repaired.
No.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm following the line. So they have submitted the deficiencies to be repaired. They have not inspected the repairs as of yet, but the general contractor has said that all of the deficiencies in this report have been repaired as of this date right now.
Is that right?
We found the deficiencies, we submitted them to the school district and allowed the school district contacted the contractor, and the contractor informed the school district that those corrections have been made. We don't have a back and forth with the contractor, only with our client.
Okay, so you don't have a back and forth with the contractor, but the GC has told Mr. Beanbo that those repairs have been made. We haven't confirmed, Mead and Hunt has not confirmed that as of yet. The district has not confirmed that as of yet.
Right.
They were just confirmed to be done last week. Okay, so I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, the motion that we have on the floor right now, if it's premature, if this has been corrected or not, I just don't understand it. I'm just confused as to why we are making a motion about the architect and those repairs when we don't even know if the deficiencies have been corrected at this point.
Ms. Hammond,
I understand that. I was going to say it may be in the wording, and I get your point, because you're saying you're trying to give that opportunity to know if they're fixed.
Right,
And so I get it.
Yeah.
Ms. Huddle, to your motion, I think if we worded it, you're still just trying to be sure that it gets handled.
yeah, I can make it past tense. I think that's, and the reason I involved the architect is because that was my understanding is the role of the architect. The architect should be involved. So I'll read, I made it past tense. I move that pursuant to the construction closeout of Piney Woods Elementary School, Chapin, South Carolina report dated March 28th, 2022, prepared by Mead and Hunt, that the superintendent require the architect to formally notify the construction manager at risk that repairs charged to his account have been made as listed in the above report prior to final acceptance of the project. It's the intent of the board that all construction be new first-class quality with specified conforming materials and acceptable workmanship prior to acceptance. Final acceptance shall be contingent upon a final report by Mead and Hunt.
So your motion is basically just asking the district to have them confirm that they've made these repairs and Mead and Hunt to go back out and confirm that those repairs were made and they're satisfactory. And
That's right.
is that latter request within the scope of Mead and Hunt's work because they've prepared this final report?
Is that right, Ms. Huddle? That's right. That's how I understand
And that's a
it.
good
That's a
question.
question to you. Is it within the scope of your agreement to go back out and confirm that the repairs have been made to your checklist of deficiencies?
Yeah, I don't know if that last part was in our scope. But, you know, we're more than willing, I think we've got an agreement in there, we can charge hourly rate. It shouldn't take long to do it. We'll take care of it, make sure you guys are getting what you paid for.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to clarify with the meet and hunt guys. Okay, the architect has prepared a final list of items to complete, and the things that you found are not on that final list of items to complete. Those items were not found by him, and therefore were not on the final punch list. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make those things go on the final punch list to the architect. It is his job to make sure that that's done and certified off as complete. So what we're asking you to do is not get involved with the contractor, and the owner should not be involved with the contractor. The owner should be going to the architect with that list of things and saying, correct these before we release payment. So that's why Ms. Mahuddle's motion is important, because the architect is the master builder. He's the one responsible for this, and not the contractor. The contractor simply is a person that gets the job done. The architect is responsible for all of that project, everything that's done or not done.
Mr. Lovelace, you're so right, and I just keep trying to say, because it may have been people that you supported for many years on the former school board. When this happened with another school, it was the architect and the construction company, and we had another entity, the construction management, and they all were in court trying to see who, because they all had a part in it. I'm just telling you that as history, that's what you do, and it does start with the architect. I mean, it does. I mean, they all have it was a tri-level thing for us. And like I said, it was not a good situation to be in, because nobody wanted to take responsibility. Let's call for the question. All those in favor of this motion? And that is 7-0. And we appreciate your work.
Thank you.
We really do. Because we just want it fixed. And I've been nice. I didn't call out the name of the architect or the construction company or the construction management company that all didn't want to be responsible for something. Okay, next. Sorry, we got too long on that. But that is so important, that school lasts as long as it is beautiful, and it is beautiful. Discussion on guiding principles on school facilities.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We return back to our guiding principles on school facilities as we address coming out of what we were doing in Piney Woods. We were moving into additional needs under the mission of providing equitable learning environments. We had, after our last facilities committee, been tasked of developing our guiding principles that consists of a 5-point plan of community analysis, facilities needs assessment, enrollment projections, instructional plan review, and developing that plan. We plan to bring on April 25th from Dr. Harris's office, the professional demographers report to show what we see in terms of trends and movement within our community. We are working with our legislative delegation, our business advisory. We plan to talk to the Chamber of Commerce about economic trends. We have our facilities needs assessment that we provided to you last two meetings of the MBCon report from 2019 of district-wide facilities to include an assessment of 24 facilities within our district, 6 rated as poor, 4 rated as poor, 6 rated as fair. Those poor facilities, as outlined on our district map, are the district office, which we appreciate the attention of with the reoccurring mold. Irmo High School, which we thank you for the second and final reading of those bonds that will allow us to get an additional $50 million in order to address the issues at Irmo High School. That leaves us with the wall situation and safety situation at Harbison West Elementary School and walls needed at Nursery Road. Those are the 4 poor rated facilities. In terms of fare, we're rated Dutch Fork Elementary School, Chapin High School, Crossroads Intermediate, Dutch Fork High School, Irmo Middle, and Seven Oaks. We looked in terms of making sure that when we communicate with the community, that as we throw around terms, that we have the same understanding for the same terms, because we do not want to misrepresent ourselves. When we talk about condition of the building, we're talking about the excellent, good, fair, and poor ratings from MBCon. When we talk about core capacity, that's the maximum amount of students that we can place in a building as defined by the cafeterias, multipurpose areas, gymnasiums. When we talk about program capacity, this is what the instructional design of the program allows, of the building allows. I akin this to my car. The core capacity is 6, but I plan for 4 people, my family, to be in it, and that's the program capacity. The average daily attendance is used as a measure of attendance, but so is ADM. Financially, we use the ADM as it helps us with the weighted pupil units. But in terms of facilities, we're going to be using enrollment and head count, which is a different number. That's how many bodies are in the building, whether they're funded or unfunded. When we use ADM, we're talking about only funded students. And so we will be using head count. We have, for financing, 2 important dates of the year. Now, we have the enrollment counts on the 10th, 45th, 90th, 135th, and 180th reports that come from Dr. Harris's office. However, to keep consistency in our reports, we will go 135th to 135th. And that way, when numbers are changing, it's very tough when we're reporting finances, because as Marty can tell you, every day the numbers change as soon as you print it. Dr. Harris will tell you the same thing. There's never a number that's static from day to day. So this allows us, when we're reporting student numbers, that we know we're going 135th to 135th. Or we can make the adjustment on the 45th to 45th. As we talk about gross square footage, it's important as we incorporate and look at the instructional plans that we look at how gross square footage is used. The philosophy has changed over time. You see 2 of our buildings contrasting the oldest untouched building in terms of renovations. Now, the current Irmo Elementary School, as Dr. Holden will tell you, is the oldest elementary school in operations. But in terms of untouched, unrenovated, it's the Dutch Fork Elementary School, where you take the square footage, divide it into equal rectangles, and that's the usage of the gross square footage. Whereas what we see today in the Pineywood School is how that gross square footage is cut up into extended learning, small groups, flex studios, maker spaces, flow-through classrooms, courtyards. This design provides an opportunity for our students and teachers to extend the learning different than the facilities that we would see at a Dutch Fork Elementary School. So what is the plan? The plan is we're developing principle number 1. It's really the foundation of our building plan, is that no student or staff member will learn or work in a fair or poor rated facility in such an excellent district as School District 5 of Lexington and Richland counties. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the Board Facilities Committee meet to consider what we are putting forth, what I'm putting forth. I'll take full responsibility of 4 options. Option number 1 is that we take no action on the remaining poor and fair rated facilities. The cost of that is unknown. Option number 2, and I call this as living above, at, and below, not our means, but our millage. Option number 2 is to borrow above our millage rate. Our debt service millage, as you remember from Finance 101, is 69.5 mils. We could borrow up to 275 to, and we talked about it, inflation is still kicking in, maybe 300 million to address all of the School District 5 of Lexington and Richland County schools. This would require a bond referendum. That would increase taxes on the debt service side. That is living above our millage. Option 3, we can borrow at our millage rate. Through PFM, we could again borrow $130 million, maintain the tax rate at 69.5 mils, and address all School District 5 of Lexington and Richland County poor and fair facilities. Option 4, we can borrow below our millage, and that would be borrowing $130 million. We could lower taxes only to the point of 68.5 mils. It would be a longer payoff time with more interest, but we could address all District 5 of Lexington and Richland County poor and fair facilities. I have worked with our team to develop a plan that we would like to bring before the Board Facilities Committee to look at the four options in which we have addressed. Options 2, 3, and 4 would require, because they go over the 8% constitutional borrowing limit, would require a question of the community through a bond referendum. And so with that, Madam Chair and members of the board, I stand for questions on this.
I realize it's getting late, so your mind may not have lots of good questions.
We try to
right
go
now.
quick. So,
But this is important, and I'm sorry it's so late. I was just conferring with board members that I'm trying not to keep anybody past 10 o'clock. Mr. Lovelace.
Just, if the superintendent requests, I would be willing to call since I'm the chair of the Board Facilities Committee, I would be willing to call a meeting on Wednesday of this week to discuss if that's your intention. And I'm asking the superintendent.
we can make that happen.
Okay, your staff, because I know they need some,
Can we do Wednesday of the following week? Yes, that'd be great, I think, yes. That would give
That-
staff
not
an
the week of
opportunity.
board meetings.
That
That's
is
what we're
actually,
trying not to do.
that's actually the procurement meeting, but we can.
I won't be here, so.
Oh, and he won't be here, so.
Well, we have all of April to,
yeah.
Well, whenever you decide to call for the meeting, I'll be glad to accommodate if I can.
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that. Any other questions, though, on his presentation? Okay, so that'll be back to us again, and like you said, it is late. 20, discussion.
I would just real
Hines?
quick, I would just request, I mean, I'm not sure if I'll be able to be at the committee meeting on a Wednesday, but I know that they're being recorded now, and I'll go back and watch them. If there could be a discussion on why a bond referendum is required and how a bond referendum can get passed without raising taxes, or how that's not going to impact the taxpayer. Those are questions that I get asked a lot. So if there could be that conversation, that would help alleviate some concerns, in more of like a layman's terms conversation.
Ms. Moore, I'm calling you, and I'll get you.
I would also like to include in that conversation, I know that you and I have discussed this, but I think what would be really good for the community is to understand where we stand with the redrawing of the lines. I think that is a question that is happening a lot with this proposal because of the what-ifs. So if that could be addressed during that same time.
Thank you, those are good. And Ms. Huddle, you had a
I was just going to say, in layman's terms, what's happening is the 2008 bond referendum bonds are maturing. So basically, what's happening is we're going to have $130 million that we can borrow and keep the exact same millage rate. We're basically we can replace bonds that mature. But because they're still in excess of the 8%, you can't do that without a bond referendum. So that's, in simple terms, where the $130 million came from. And I think option 4 is you can lower it just by pushing out the debt a little bit further. So it's still $130 million, but you lower the millage because you're pushing that debt out over a longer period of time. Is that was in layman terms.
And that's how we have IRMO and the projects that we have, the Chapin, but now this is going to go over that 8%. All that was within.
And I think your option is, I mean, what your point is, we have some needs. But I also know Ms. Moore's point's well taken, because that came out under the the former board and the former administration about, the idea of what facilities needed. I mean, that night, we even heard some should just be torn down and then you got to look at redrawing lines depending on what kids are where and how many students are at the different facilities, and to be sure that the facilities are equitable. I mean, I get it. It's a lot. I appreciate you taking this on, and I think it's very good that we have committees that are willing to spend their time and work on that, and they are live streamed. And so, and if you do have any questions, like Ms. Hines, or if you can't come with work, complex, then let that facilities committee know. So,
And I would just say, like, I get what Ms. Huddle is saying. My point is, like, if we're gonna have a committee meeting, for those principles to be discussed as we're going through options.
Okay.
Because I know that people have those questions, and when they watch, I mean, if it was just that easy, what you just said, we could talk about, and we wouldn't even need a committee meeting. So that's all I'm asking is that it be referred back to as we talk about each option, so we can determine which option is the best for the board to recommend as for the district.
thank you. Can we go to 20? Discussion regarding face covering resolution.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is regarding the face covering resolution that was passed. I don't have the date here, but we have changed our mitigation levels. So at the last board meeting, this was our second change of that, where green no longer recommends mask wearing. We would ask that this resolution be rescinded, and in rescinding that, we would go and make changes to the policies so that, now, as Dr. Harris made in that presentation, students are still welcome and teachers are still welcome to wear it, but we're removing the language encouraging mask wearing while in green.
And because that was a resolution and this is on the discussion, but are you recommending we come back with that, or another resolution that rescinds it, or?
It's on
We can make the
discussion,
motion.
so it doesn't require action, but that's up to the
But
board.
if anybody wants to make that motion. Okay, Ms. Huddle?
The policy actually requires face
Okay.
covering. So if we were to rescind this
the
motion
policy.
tonight, we would be requiring masks tomorrow.
got
So
you, I got you.
I think the better course of action
It's on the
might
next.
be to get the policy readings done, fix the policy, and then the same night that we pass the change to the policy, we can rescind this resolution.
Okay. We appreciate that you.
I was thinking, because I
You're
didn't want to
thinking.
create havoc.
That's right, Ms. Huddle. 20, now, I'm just going to throw this out now as chair. I have made a promise to employees and the public too that's trying to listen to this. It's late. If there's any board member that so desires that we could defer the 21 through 23 to the next meeting, unless it's a burning desire, that may be something, I don't know, even in you too, Dr. Ross, any of those.
I'll make a motion that we defer items 21 to 23 to the next board meeting.
Okay, we have a
just one
second.
point?
Yeah, and then I was going to ask if there's something
We had Attorney Reiser stay to
Oh.
just speak on one item.
All right.
It was and that was board policy FGG. We're not going to hold him to any more long meetings here, but
okay, so 22, all right, so,
I didn't know if it was.
So
Would you
could
make a
I
friendly-
amend the motion? Could I amend the
we can-
motion to only defer 21 and 23?
well, I think since that motion's on the floor with a second, we either have, would you be willing to amend
No,
it?
you actually amend before you vote. You vote on the amendment first.
But I thought she would amend it that made it. But-
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay, then fine, we got it. And all those in favor then of Ms. Huddle's? And that is 7-0. So I feel bad that I would have done that to you. See, that's why we have Dr. Ross. All right, go back to the original motion. So all those in favor? And no zeros. 7-0. Good. Now, let's let you introduce what he needs to.
There was just a update on board policy FGG, Facility Construction Project Administration. In the purpose statement, it says to establish the basic structure for the use of change orders as well as contingency allowances included in previously approved contracts for school construction contracts. And I think there was an issue with the word previously. I just wanted you to explain that to the board, and then we wouldn't hold you for another one of these advisements.
Oh, well, thank you, the board, Dr. Ross. I would have been more than happy to to go on home. I did have the opportunity to review the policy, and I have some suggestions or some potential suggested revisions that will tighten that policy just for clarity's sake. The first would be, as Dr. Ross said, that the previously approved language in the purpose section be taken out only because on first reading, I think it would be, it's possible that one may see that as having a retroactive effect on contracts that are approved before this policy was passed. I think that would be problematic related to legal challenges, both on constitutionality and then the grounds of negotiating agreements. I have a few more comments related to the larger section underneath that that begins with the district may make changes. I think, from what I understand, the purpose of that particular section is to reserve the right that the district may request for scope changes in its contracts, which is perfectly acceptable. I think on first reading, though, there are some issues related to how those proposed changes may affect the agreement, its scope, warranties, and particularly third parties, which would be bonds. Those are agreements between the bonding company and the contractor related on bonding capacity. I just have some suggestions related to putting in reserves the right and seeks to invalidate, not seeking to relieve or release. A few extra words in that paragraph I think would tighten it and would, I think would give us a better, a less ambiguous section there. Let me say this. I've also taken the opportunity to put this in writing. I have a memo that I have prepared that I have I've given it to Mr. Beedenbow and to Dr. Ross. If you have the opportunity to review that between a first and a second reading, you might have the opportunity to comment on some of that language, and I'll defer to that. I'm not waiving, nor is this district waiving, any attorney-client privilege related to that. A couple more points. Subsection 1 under the numbered section regarding the procedure indicates that the architect may be drafting or making change orders. And I would just say that I would consider a revision of that allows for other personnel or representatives of the district to do that in case the architect would be asking for an ad service for preparing change orders. And so it'd give us some wiggle room there. And finally, in subsection 3, there's an indication that the Office of School, the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of School Facilities may or could be involved in reviewing change orders. I think that could be an unnecessary complication to the administration of projects, and I also wonder if OSF would even agree to do that, given their workload. And so those are my brief comments related to our first review of the policy. I think it's an effective policy and could go a long way to guiding projects moving forward. With a little tightening, I think that it would be a good policy advance for the district.
And you do have you have those in writing for Dr. Ross?
Yes,
And
I
that's-
do.
That's great.
I would like to make a motion on that, based on what Mr. Reiser said then. I would like to defer this to a time certain, which would be the next meeting, and get the attorney's information and incorporate that in here, you know, and move forward.
In other words, what
at the
he's
next
given to
meeting.
them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it would be proper to move forward right now without the wording being, you know,
I agree.
exactly right.
Ms. Hines? Huh? Oh, you're second. Okay. All those in favor? All right, that's 7-0. Thank you so much, and I am sorry that you had to stay so late.
Thank
I'm
you.
working hard on this 10 o'clock thing, but we made it. And that's so important for our district to get our policies straight. Mr. Hogan, I think, it doesn't have his name there, but it's,
Chairwoman Hammond, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second? I see, Ms. Gardner, we'll let you second that. All those in favor? Thank you, board. Y'all are good. We are adjourned.